Hello, language enthusiasts, and welcome to The Language Worker, a space to talk about the people involved in the language business in a broad sense. I'm interested in finding out how their training, work experience, and their passion for languages has shaped our guests' professional and, of course, personal lives. Join me on this journey to explore the multiple and unpredictable paths one can follow when we are involved in the magical world of languages. Diego Perez calls himself a game localization wizard, and he sure sounds like one. We had an amazing conversation a few weeks ago, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. Diego told me about his background and how his passion for writing and content creation came to life in the form of a job that he loves. It was a pleasure to get to know him better and understand a bit more about the world of games. May the force be with you. Hi, everybody. Today I'm here with Diego. So he's Brazilian, and I'm Portuguese, as you know, but we decided that we're going to speak in English because the subject of our conversation, or Diego's main activity, is something where we use a lot of terminology in English. So therefore, instead of just switching back and forth, we just decided to record the episode in English. And this is why, even though both of us are Portuguese native speakers, we're going to record the episode in English. So, Diego, if you could just briefly introduce yourself.
Hello, Rita. Thank you again for inviting me to your podcast. Really happy to be here with this opportunity. I'm Diego Perez. I'm 33 years old. I'm currently based in São Paulo, but I was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, or the Cidade Maravilhosa, as some people would call it, until I was 24. And then I moved to São Paulo. I've been living here for about 8 years. So I'm passionate about language, games, and writing in general. So I think this is it.
This is you. So you're actually from Rio de Janeiro.
Yes, yes, yes. But I miss the beaches and of course the sun. Although it's a sunny day here in São Paulo, but the weather is just so different.
Yeah, I
But
bet. So
yeah,
you were in Rio de Janeiro when you studied, right? So you
yes.
studied Portuguese and English. So I saw it on your LinkedIn profile. So that's what happened, right? You studied in Rio de Janeiro.
Yes, yes. It was a bachelor's degree. I undergraduated in 2013 by the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. So it's a public university and a federal one at that. So but actually my first work experience was in English teaching while I was still at university. So it was a community program. So we taught English to people with a very accessible tuition fee. Let's put it. It was semester with a really low one, so that we could gather people either from within the university or for the communities, low-income communities that were around the university. So I taught English for about 3 years at this more of a program of English teaching program before I actually moved to translation. And I actually started translating accidentally because it was not it was not planned. But basically, when I was in university, some colleagues from other university courses, they were writing all kinds of papers, and they needed to translate abstracts. So that's my very first experience with translation. I was
Right.
translating abstracts from all kinds of subjects, but this was a great experience because that's when I really started researching things outside my usual field of knowledge, let's put it.
So when you went to college, the idea was not to be a translator in the end. Was it to be a teacher?
No, it was actually to be a video game writer, a narrative designer, as they call it
Okay.
nowadays. Yes, I was fascinated with role-playing games in video games about all the stories and dialogues, and that was just For me, it was like an expansion of books, but in an interactive way. And I loved how you could construct and write narratives that were designed to be interactive with and provide multiple choices for the players. So that's why was my first fascination with writing in general. So I entered university with that in mind.
So you wanted to
And
be a writer to begin with.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, but then once I started actually studying that, I saw how difficult the market really was,
Mhm.
how writing as a career could be really hard, especially when you are writing in a foreign language. And this is the case with many games developed in Brazil, even right now, that they are usually written in English, and then they are localized to Portuguese, which is crazy,
Uh-huh.
right? So you have native Brazilians developing their games in English first, and then localizing to Portuguese, because that way they can just enter the global market, in a way. So that's when I realized that career was not a realistic for me at that time, for at least. So I started exploring other options. So the first one was English teaching, and then I started experimenting with translation, like I said, translating abstracts and other articles that ended up on my plate. So and my first actual professional experience as a translator in an agency environment, let's put it, was 1 year after I graduated, if I'm not wrong, because to be completely honest, I needed a job. I needed an
Of course.
income.
That's exactly how it goes.
That's true, right? So that when I was looking at what I enjoyed doing, and of course, I compared English teaching with English translating, and I'm not very much of a people's person, so it was more comfortable. It was more comfortable for me to work behind the screen, behind the scenes. That was at my own time, at my own pace. So that's when I started really going deeper into translation, and I got my first my first jobs from a translation agency that actually had nothing to do with video games at the
So,
time.
but you didn't work on site, right? You were still working or you were already working as a freelancer. So you never went through the experience of working for an LSP like for a training or as an in-house translator. Did any of that
No,
happen?
no. I was never in an internship or in-house position in any way. This company in particular, I got to know them because of a former colleague that graduated with me. He had done an internship with them with that LSP, and then so I just reached out to him. Well, are you looking for someone to help you with your translators? The usual networking, and that's how I got my first experience with an LSP. And at the time, I translated all kinds of stuff. So there were a lot of oil and gas, um, because they had relationships with companies all over the world, from Singapore and from really Malaysia, a lot of countries all over the world. And I also translated some other things like forklift manuals and technical things, and that was really challenging because of course I was not remotely familiar with that subject at first, but anyway, so that was my first experience. So I just but actually that's where I met Prozy.com, for example, because the that was my main go-to resource. The terminology base in Prosy is so strong, with the community is so strong, so willing to help, and that's when I started having an internet, getting to know people from all over the world in the translation industry instead of just people in my own company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also started opening up some doors for me.
That sounds very good. And so you kept on going with your new status of a freelance translator, now in Prose, right? With your profile in Prose, or prose.com. I don't know what people usually call it. I call it Prose. I guess everybody in the community knows what that is. So then what happened? Did you continue with this company and you added more to your group of clients, or what happened? Was it it was the other way around, so people found you? How was it in the beginning?
Well, I stayed with that company for 1 year, gathering as much experience as I wanted, and of course the rate was what you probably would expect for an entry-level freelancer. So really really low rates at first, but at my age and where I lived, that was enough to get me started and to live by myself. So that was an important step. And what happened next? Well, once I joined ProZ, I started exploring the website, and that's when I realized I could find other translation agencies, but I was still not sure how to receive payments from abroad. I was not even sure if that would be possible because it's 2014 at the time, so things were still at my age at least. It just wasn't clear if I could actually receive those
Yes,
payments.
at your
Right?
age.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, I
already
know, right?
very clear. But I understand that once you're
People
getting
had been
started
doing
with
that.
all of that to solve, I know it's a lot. But yeah, I guess it was
Yeah,
pretty established at that time.
yeah. People had translating abroad for ages, of course, right? Yeah, but for me that was just a whole world. I thought, okay, so PayPal, maybe.
My account for PayPal is from 2007. So what can I say?
Yeah, I signed up probably in 2014. That's when I was started taking on work from abroad. So that's how it went. It went for me in the beginning. I just started looking up job postings on Prozee. I'm not sure if I actually was selected through those job posting, or if I eventually was able to apply for an agency through their portal instead of a job posting. So really, I don't know how I started finding some clients, but I remember how I started on video game localization in
Okay, that's
particular.
important. We need that point to be
Yeah,
clear.
yeah, that it was crazy because I actually had a friend come over in my house, and we actually had only met online through online games, but at that time we were living in São Paulo. He wasn't from São Paulo initially, and neither was I. I was from Rio, and he was from Fortaleza. And then I had my I he came over to my house, and I started talking to him about life and about other friends in that online community. And I mentioned I was working as a translator, and he said, "Oh, that someone is actually works as a video game translator." And I was like, "Is that a thing? Can you?"
In 2014 or 15?
Yeah,
I love it.
because I was under the impression that it's funny how long it took me to realize I was
No, you were
already.
young. That's why. You were super young. That's
Yeah,
why. Of course.
definitely. I, I had been working for about 2 years, and I never thought I could just join the two things. I was playing video games at night and translating at day, and then I realized, okay, I can translate games at day. So
Go figure.
yeah, go
Like
figure.
I know there's somehow in other languages, but I don't know how that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I was under the impression that the game developers or publishers, they were all hiring in-house. That I remember seeing some job postings for localization translators or editors or coordinators in those big companies like Blizzard and other companies that were around at the time. But I thought that that was it. They maybe you either worked with them or living abroad or something like that, or there was no other way to work with them. So that's when I realized, oh, so there are localization agencies, LSPs out there who are taking care of this outsourced localization work. So that's when it dawned on me that okay, then I can I can start looking for those localization agencies. Then, so that's when things changed for me, and how I found my first my most important client. Let's put it at the time. It was through Lockgem. Are you familiar with Lockgem?
I don't think I am. Things I don't know.
But
There's lots
Lockgem.
I don't know.
Lockgem, I don't know if Lockgems, if there's going to be a Lockgem this year, but Lockgems are yearly events that the organizers, they create some localization challenge of a video game or a board game, and this game it is completely created for the Lockgem, so it's not an existing game. It's created for the purposes of this event. And this game is made available for many languages out there, so that people can submit within a time frame their localization for that localization challenges. And then you have a selection committee for each language to select the best localization. And this is also this is a very good entry point for localization specialists or aspiring localization specialists, because they can well, if their work selected, then they are on the spotlight, right? So
they have like a free pass to to
yeah.
enter.
Yeah, so and other localization agencies, they are familiar with this event, so they can just pick if they need a Brazilian translator or a Spanish translator, they can look at those who are selected and see if they are interested in working with them. So this
It becomes like part of your, let's call it portfolio. I don't know if that's the term in this circumstance.
Yes, exactly. And it's one of the most interesting ways so that you can actually experiment with video game localization, because usually the files, the localization files that you work in, they are not accessible because they're part of the game code. So if you are not working in that project specifically, you cannot really train your translation skills by translating the game, because you don't actually have access to that text. So Lockgems are a good opportunity for people to actually try their hand and see if they like the challenge of translating a video game.
So you being already a video game, fan and player, yes, have your water. Take your time. No, you need to do that because we're going to talk for a little bit. So while you were playing, were you already thinking about the linguistic questions involved? Were you already like kind of naturally, like we do as people who are interested in languages when we watch movies and all that? Did you already have that perspective of that particular type of content? Did you enjoy thinking about it? Did you play in with games that were already in the localized version, or did you always go for the English version? So how was your experience as a user before you even entered the thing as a professional?
Great question.
Because I'm addicted to watching things and then dissecting all sorts of content to see, how much I can learn from it and how I can just go a bit further with my English or whatever thing I'm thinking about. So I'm thinking that someone like you was already language minded, if this exists, was already obviously, I think, focusing on that and thinking about those things. So by the time you actually had to do it, you have you had already a different thought process than most people who were not familiar with the content itself.
Perfect. Well, so before I started working with translating video games, I played the games mostly in English, and this is something I know now that is a mistake when you are working as a translator, and that's something I'm always.
It's just a fact of life, I think.
Yeah. And that's something I'm always advising students or people who are doing my course, is that you have to spend more time with your native language, playing games in your native language, so that you can actually write in a natural way and in a way that's approachable to users, than if you are just working with just consuming English.
Because it's a very different experience, right? I mean, that's how I feel. I have everything in English, and then every time I have something in Portuguese, I'm a bit like, I'm not sure. But sometimes I do it also for training purposes, obviously. You know, even my iPhone and all of that stuff, I try to have it in English, but then I'm like, no, let's actually see how this goes, because of course it's terminology that I use, so I really need to be on point with it. So I have to make an effort to have, you know, things in English and things in Portuguese, also to make sure that I keep up with the trends in translation or in localization.
Perfect. So, and then I was just playing games in English, and especially when I still had that idea of writing games. So I had to be immersed in the language as much as I could. But then once I started translating, that's when I got curious about a lot of terms, game terminology that I took for granted, and I had no idea, okay, how am I going to translate this game concept in a way that's familiar to users? I had no idea. So the only logical step was to look at what people had been doing up to that point. So that's when I switched all my interfaces and games and everything to Portuguese, because I need to communicate with the target audience, right? So that's one way I could bridge that gap. So and once I did that, once I changed the language, sometimes changing back and forth so that I can actually see exactly how things are getting translated. And that's when the most analytical parts of me took over in playing games, and I was never able to just relax playing games again, because
I know what you mean. It's impossible to watch anything with me. It's just, people don't want to be around me because I'm always commenting and being annoyed or just being super happy, or like, oh, this was genius here, and right. So we find ourselves looking at it from a totally different perspective, and sometimes, I mean, probably you're not as vocal as I am, so but I'm a bit annoying.
Pause a lot to write notes. I'm a note keeper, so I try to.
I like that. I'm not.
But sometimes you're not.
I'll ask for your notes if I ever have to deal with anything.
Oh, they are so disorganized.
Don't worry, nothing is worse than my brain. Nah, just kidding. I just want to make you laugh so that you can relax a little bit.
You're too kind. Well, so I'm always pausing things so that I can write something down and have ideas for later. And this can be really annoying for people who are around me. So sometimes I just have to stop. Okay, I won't bother people by taking notes.
You're not actually watching anything. You're just studying. This is what I say.
That's it, right? Yeah, you even in your free time, you're trying to make to get something more useful, or to optimize your time, maybe.
For sure. I know exactly how it goes. Let's see exactly how it goes.
That was it is a great experience playing games in Brazilian Portuguese, because there, even when something's not right, you are learning something from that, right? So you are thinking of better solutions when you're not happy with the solutions they provided, and when you are happy with that solution, then you can add that to your.
You go like, wow, this was genius. I love it.
Yeah,
exactly, nailed it. This is exactly what I would do. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, and video game localization, people can get so creative in their solutions. So that's and I think that's what really attracted the writer in me, because sometimes you have the opportunity to be so original in your own writing, right? When you are transcreating a name, or just writing in a particular slang of your language, it really feels like you are writing from scratch. Let's put it that.
But don't make it sound that romantic, because I've I watched I watched a webinar some time ago, and that thing almost changed my life because the guest was so good. She's a professor at Barcelona University. She's an expert in video game localization, and she actually teaches that at university for the masters. Yes, I know. She's like probably the dream professor of anybody who works with that. And one of the things that called my attention, obviously, because that's one of my interests in life, one of the things that has been with me ever since I was very young. So she emphasized that there are multiple types of skills that you need as a translator in order to translate a game, because there's a lot of terminology, there's a lot of legal facts that have to be translated and all of that, apart from all the creative things that immediately us people who don't know think, oh my God, must be so creative. But then she called the viewer's attention for those parts, and I was even more interested, because I thought, oh, there's hope for me to participate sometime in a project like this, like in the terminology part or something like that, because that's obviously what interests me. So then what happens when people hire you, when an agency or a company, doesn't matter who hires you, what do they expect from you? Is it that they hire just one person to localize the whole game in that particular language or flavor, as I like to call it? Or is it that you have people with different skills that will take care of the different parts? How does it usually go?
That's a very great question. So
Thank you.
no, it really is.
Question rating time.
That's not, apologies.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
That's a great question, and so it really depends on the size of the game, and of course the deadline. So right now my main project is Kenshi 2, which is a role-playing game in an open world, and there's a lot of dialogue, thousands and thousands of words, and this is the kind of project that is usually split within a team, but the studio actually prefer to have one linguist per language taking care of the whole game. So we are like part of the development team, in a way, of actually localization team, but we work with the developers, and this is something that's not very usual, especially for indie games. Indie games are the ones who usually outsource the work, but they prefer to have only one linguist per to take care of the game itself. And of course, this is only possible because the deadline, the duration of the project is so long that they can do that. But sometimes game developers, they choose to localize their games about, I don't know, 2 months before release. So they have already designed and completed their game entirely, and then they think, oh, we have to localize that. So so that's when they go desperate, chasing some LSP to help with their game, and the largest LSPs, of course, they can offer a faster turnaround time. So that's when these projects are distributed in a way to different linguists, and ideally you would have only one editor or language lead, so that they can actually make sure the game has the voice that's expected. And like you said, yes, some parts of the game will be assigned to people who are more familiar with with a certain type of localization. For example, end user license agreements, which like a law, involves law and patents and things like that. So you have translators in the agencies who are more who are more familiar with this expertise, and others will take care, for example, of the dialogue, because that's really where the creative part shows up. And some will take care of the interface, because the interface you have to be more, you actually have to visualize how the game plays from text, and this can be really challenging, and usually this goes to people who are more experienced
That's
with
like the
translation.
click here to move forward or something like that, right? The
Yeah,
interface.
yes. Yeah, yes, you have these tutorial messages, but you also have all the buttons in the screen, and the headings, tab headings, and item names. All this goes in the bucket of interface. And sometimes you don't have enough context to go around with. So that's they usually assign that to translators who are used to work in under these conditions. And when they're when for but for mobile games that have around, I don't know, 15,000 words, 20,000, sometimes they get assigned to one translator and one reviewer. If they have some weeks to work with that, then that's fine. The LSP doesn't need to worry about finding other translators to work with a project.
So you're saying that if it's a mobile game, let's of course, I don't know anything about that, or I know just a little bit about that. Let's put it that way. My experience in video games was way back then, way before 2014, I can assure you. But so what's the difference between mobile games and then what I assume to be a game that you play in the computer? So in terms of, is there a structure difference? Is it because you said it's about 15 words if it's a mobile game? So if it's is it like a version, a smaller version, or is it the same game adapted in certain respects, or what's the difference?
Well, usually computer games and console games like Xbox, PlayStation, they share a lot of things in common. So basically the game plays the same, but
and then the words are in what kind of numbers are we looking at? You said 15,000 for the mobile ones, so this more complete, let's call it that version. What kind of number of words are we looking at?
well, really, it could be any range, because even for computer games, you might have indie games with not much text. Some games they pride themselves in being very visual and iconographical, so they try to reduce the amount of text in the game as
More
much as they
IKEA style, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they have this whole thing about okay, text can break immersion, so let's try to make the games as interactive and intuitive as possible. So these games will have, I don't know, maybe 500 words at most.
Oh.
They write only what's absolutely necessary. And of course you can find these types of game in mobile games too, but other, like the largest productions out there, what we call AAA titles, they can easily reach 1 million words throughout the entire project. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. It can reach
Okay.
that, or even
I was just
beyond
not
that.
expecting that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And when you are working with a master file in MemoQ of a game like that, your computer just the computer can handle that. It crashes, and you have to break down in smaller files so that you can actually operate things there. So yeah, computer games and console games that are the so-called AAA titles, they are not available to mobile. Maybe they will have some kind of spin-off or something that is designed for mobile, and that game will exist in the same universe, but will not play the same. The game design for mobile games can be very different, especially in terms of monetization, because for mobile games, they are more interested in providing a free to play or a freemium, like they say, a freemium monetization strategy, where you can start playing for free, but you eventually have to pay to progress through the levels or to access other parts of content. So mobile games have this, their game design can be very different from other games where you pay up front and you have access to most of the content except some cosmetics or some bonus stages or things like that. So that's the main difference I would say about those platforms.
Wow, fascinating. So I knew that you were a real expert.
Thank
Because
you.
I had been I had been thinking about inviting well, really an expert on video game localization, because it's a thing that interests me. I will say from a linguistic point of view, not necessarily because I would be playing the games, but it just intrigues me a lot, because I can only imagine the amount of things that go in and out of those heads of people who have to figure all of this out, and developers. And then, if you're lucky enough to have access, it's like having an access to an author that you are translating, I suppose, right? I guess it's the same philosophy, right? That must be
Yes.
amazing for someone like you. So where is your writer right now in terms of a possibility of going back to your original dream and do that kind of work that you were interested when you first went to university?
Well, I think that writer is more alive than ever because
Because you're actually writing, might not be your content, but you're writing.
Yeah. And I'm actually writing some original content. For example, for the course that I presented on Transistor, I had to do a lot of writing in preparation to when preparing the material and actually understanding the knowledge I had, right? Because we spend years working in a certain field, and the knowledge is there. You can apply it in your day-to-day, but you don't usually stop to think what you actually know and try to systemize that in a way. So that was uh, a surprising and welcome challenge for me when I accepted to present that course. So that's when I went back to writing basically, and then this has been a great experience because I'm now more motivated to keep myself writing and producing other kinds of content, and even writing on LinkedIn, which has been a game changer for me. Has brought a lot of opportunities for me, including the course at Transistars and this podcast. I also wrote an editorial for digital magazine last month. So this is something that has going on for me, and I'm really excited about having the chance to start writing again, and let's see where that goes, what it brings. But so far it has been so fun to change gears a bit from translating into Brazilian Portuguese and to actually writing content and publishing content. So yeah, the writer
Oh,
is
I'm happy to know, because I'm sure that you deserve it, because from what I can see, you really deserve it. But
Thank
let's
you.
just be a little bit more clear about this Translastar. So I don't know if I'm sure everybody's familiar with this, but Translastars is some sort of a Netflix of content for translators, for people interested in all things translation. I've done a bootcamp for SEO myself with Alfonso, the owner. So let's talk a little bit about this specific course that you were teaching just recently, right? I guess this was very recent, and I saw the post, and I saw a lot of people interacting, a lot of people showing their admiration and sending you positive feedback. So obviously I saw that there was a lot of Portuguese people doing that, so I bet there was a lot of Portuguese people attending the course. So let's talk a little bit about it, because I'm sure that anyone who's interested in this kind of content, and even people who want to know more about it for other reasons, like myself, then let's talk about it and see what it is, and then we'll actually also put the link down there on YouTube, so that anyone can access your course.
Perfect.
So you were
Well,
invited because
I was active at LinkedIn at the time. I had been putting out some content, but not in a consistent way as much as I wanted. But still, I was always there putting up some things and trying to help other translators, trying to contribute with my own insights into game localization. and I had a successful post at the time for my standards. So and then that's when Alfonso reached out to me and presented the I was already familiar with Transistors. I had already taken some courses there. I had told other translators about the e-learning platform. So Alfonso talked to me about this about presenting a game localization course. There wasn't any video game localization courses on Translators yet. We had a lot of other courses, but not game localization. And then he invited me to present a course and let me choose the duration and the scope. And I got really ambitious and I thought, okay, I will teach everything I know.
Oh, as if. Fortunately, that's not possible.
Yeah, that's true, right? But I think I underestimated how much I knew, because like I said, we have the knowledge, we have the experience, we use it daily, but we don't usually stop to think how much time you can spend talking about or presenting things. So yeah, so I said, okay, well, I would like to present a 1 week course, and they'll provide more like a roadmap that will take a beginner to finding their first assignments. And also I would like to provide some tips for translators who already have some experience, but maybe they do not have moved around so much in the game localization market, because that's something that happened to me personally. I spent about 5 to 6 years in the same translation agency, so I gained a lot of linguistic experience, about a lot of project experience. But it's completely different once you leave the agency and actually start braving the freelance market, because it's so different, right? When you are working closely with an LSP, even if you're just a freelancer, you are not in house, but you are always working with them. You don't have many other clients, and you see things differently when you start working with other with other partners. And I saw and I realized that was valuable, not a lot knowledge that not a lot of people had. So that's what I thought it was a good idea to put some kind of content about this inside the course that was initially aimed at beginners, aspiring video game localization specialists. So yeah, so I accepted the challenge, and I had like 4 to 5 months to prepare the course. Fortunately, I was able to take my time with it, so that there was not any pressure. And then I started just posting about the course and telling people about it. That's when I realized people were interested in what the course could bring to them. And then of course I got nervous. I thought, oh, I hope I can deliver. I can live up to the expectation that I'm creating myself. But thankfully, once I started presenting the course and actually listening to feedback and hearing what people were saying about the course, it got me really excited about all of that. And if I to sum up what the course is about, well, basically the course is divided in 5 sessions, five lessons. And the first one is just a big overview of about difference between the localization and translation, and what exactly means video game localization in terms of localizing the experience of a game to a target language. And then on the next lessons, I actually present a bit of the day-to-day and how to work with localization files, what translators can expect, what are the main challenges of video game localization as opposed to a document translation, for example. So that is working with tags, with some character limit constraints, So I tried to present to show a bit of what a video game localizer is expected to face in their day-to-day. I also presented, showed how localization testing works. That is basically playing the game to find if the interface, if the translation in the interface works as expected, if the user is not misled by a translation because of a context mismatch and things like that. And finally, at the last lesson, that's when I actually show a bit of the localization market and discuss rates and how one can go about finding clients on ProZ or on LinkedIn, and some general tips and how to actually market your localization experience to find better clients. So I tried to to encompass many things in one single course.
Wow.
And while I was building the course, I was constantly asking myself what were my main questions when I started in video game localization, and things that I would have liked people tell me before finding it hard way. So so that's how I built this course. I was really proud that I could finish it up to my own expectations. And I got even more proud when I saw that people were getting value from that. So yeah, it's crazy because and I started thinking, wow. So at the beginning, I chose translation instead of teaching because I was not a people's person. But now I'm presenting courts and participating in podcasts. So it's funny how how things go, right?
Yeah, well, and a lot more to come from what I can see, because I mean, a lot more people were going to realize what an expert you are and just invite you to all sorts of things, I'm sure, because you are a real expert. I'm like, oh my God, I even feel like just doing the course and all of that, because I'm just curious about it, to be honest, because it's such an in thing, you know. It's just so interesting. The other day I went to and talked to high school kids, and basically the conversation ended up being about video games. Which is something I don't really know anything about. But the moment that people realize I work in languages, like that crowd, that's one of the first questions that they asked me, believe it or not. So, and I was like, well, I have done a lot of things, but my relationship with that subject is like from back in the day. And yeah, I have a few stories about that, but it's just that it's obviously not something that I could talk about, obviously. But fortunately, there are people who know exactly what they're saying about all this, and this is what I can say. I just wish that your future goes and becomes even brighter than it is at the moment, because I mean, I guess you're living the dream, right? Is that how you feel?
Thank you so much, Rita. Yeah, this is the last couple of years have been actually the best ones in my career. That I'm really putting myself out there, and it's hard to overcome that challenge. You're constantly battling imposter syndrome or just general insecurity that, oh, am I really an expert? And then but you just start dipping your finger in the water and feeling if it's warm, if it's not, and then you start building from there. So yeah, I'm feeling great about how things are going, and about my about finding my confidence in writing, in speaking publicly. So yeah, it's been a ride.
So congratulations, because that's what everybody aspires to, right? Just to be in that position. So we'll just leave on this high note.
Perfect. Very
Thank you
nice.
so much, Diego. This has been amazing. Muito obrigada. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed talking to you. It's the first time that we're talking, but it won't be the last, I'm sure. And it would be great to know even more about this. Everybody, if you're interested, Diego's course is out there on Transla Stars, and we'll get the links from Diego and all of that. And then we'll be hearing a lot more about you, I'm sure. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rita.
Bye.